How's it? I'm Honan,
I'm Oliver.
and this is episode 12 of K-Pop Podcast. And today we are starting with a very, very interesting topic, lip syncing. And there's obviously groups that everyone thinks of with lip syncing, but I kind of want to see where you go first with this.
Okay, well, so I think the first thing I will do is talk about the different types, I guess, or like the different terminology that gets used in these kinds of discussions, because we have essentially four different terms to know. So there's MR, which means music recorded, and that's just the musical, like the instrumental accompaniment, right? So like if you go to karaoke and you sing a song, you get the instrumental and no voice, right? And then you put your own voice over it. Then you also have AR, which is all recorded, which includes the sound of the voice on top of that. And then you have LAR and LMR, which is live all recorded and live music recorded. Essentially, live all recorded is like you get the sound of the singing, but it also includes like the breathing and that kind of stuff. So it's not the same as what you'd hear on the CD, but
I've seen the ending phase where they have the at the end every time.
So you hear a bit more, and even just like you might hear when they make like a p, and you can hear that kind of sound on the mic, like that kind of thing. And then you have the live music recorded is like it's similar, but it has just parts of the music recorded, and there's parts where they have to add to it, basically.
Yeah, so I'd say the most common one you see is the MR, right? In like
it depends.
In the music show ones, at least, I think, or like the normal what do they call those, like showcase ones that they always have?
So it's important to make the distinction, obviously, that happens between music show performances and like other performances. Well, music show and like end of year show performances usually, and then like concerts or individual stages and stuff like that, because a lot of the time groups will use more AR in music shows or MR in music shows because of the nature of the production of those shows. It's like it's such a hectic thing, and a lot of the parts of it is actually made. It's chopped up from different recordings and stuff.
Yeah, they film it a bunch of times. I've seen like clips where they do it over and over again.
Yeah, so music shows they always have a pre-recording and then a live recording as well. So and the what goes out on broadcast will often be a mix of the two. So it obviously would sound really weird if it was like half of one and half of the other, right? You'd notice that there was a difference. So for a lot of that, it's just for convenience's sake. It's the same reason why bands have to like mime playing the instruments when they go on music shows and stuff. It's not that they can't play the instruments, and often they are actually doing the correct like.
I remember Rolling Quartz when we watched, and you could see how it's Artem, right, the bass player, and you could see how like bored she was because she had to pretend she was playing bass or whatever. She's just like, oh my god, really? It's like I have to pretend like I'm really playing this right now.
It's just the way that those shows work, because you got to get obviously if there's 20 acts on the billing for the recording for the day, it's like you have a lot to go in and on and off, like, so it's just for convenience. And then if it's like a dance performance or something like that, then obviously you have to contend with the fact that there's going to be a lot of sound coming out of someone's mic if they're mic'd up and they're suddenly throwing around like really energetic choreo and stuff.
Yeah, I understand the lip syncing and like the music show things when there's obviously like some crazy choreography going on, and it's like, okay, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of breathing and like movement. That movement makes it a lot harder to sing, obviously. I'm okay with the lip syncing in like certain scenarios, like those music show things where it's supposed to be kind of like a perfect dance performance of the choreography and everything, like a presentation of the song
Yeah.
I would be disappointed if I went to see their concert or something, and then it's
Right.
all that's when it would be like kind of like, oh, okay, this is like the concert and you're lip syncing would be when I would
Yeah.
personally be disappointed.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's, I mean, we've both been to K-pop concerts and they
Mm-hmm.
sang live, right? Like
Yeah.
when we, like from seeing Blackpink, for example, they sang the whole concert live and they didn't do as much choreo, and that's probably part of the reason
Yeah.
why they were able to do that, right? But you could tell that they were singing live, which obviously is how it should be. But then you might see them on a music show and they won't. Um, and I think generally, the group or the company will choose essentially like a percentage of AR for different people in the group. So like the main vocalist might have only like 20% of the recording and the rest of it is their voice.
Mm-hmm.
Or it obviously can change for different parts of the song, like different sections and whatnot.
Yeah, some B does that a lot, I've noticed, where like some parts are just like impossible between the breaths for her to actually sing it, so that just has the backtrack do certain vocals over her vocals.
Yeah, so it's like, so well, I'm going to talk that, say that in a second. It's like what is actually lip syncing is if you are mouthing something and there is no sound coming out of your mouth, right? But sometimes they won't move their lips and you'll hear the voice because they literally just don't have. And often see that with rap sections as well. If there's like a little call and response thing, they'll say one bit and then the sound will just play the other bit. They won't try and do the whole thing.
Yeah, it's like an overdub going over them as they're performing.
Yeah. But what gets kind of weird is when you have like one member who has a very low percentage of the AR and then you have another member with a really high one, and you can kind of hear the difference between like a strong someone who has you can clearly hear their voice coming out, and then someone else where you can barely hear it and you can clearly hear the voice in the background on the pre-recording.
Twice I've noticed sometimes on those show performance things, like you'll be like, okay, Nion's really singing or something, and like Gio, and then there will be certain members where it's like, okay, that was not real. Like there'll be like you're saying, there will be like sometimes it's like, oh, one is really singing, like, and then one isn't in this performance.
Yeah. And it used to be really bad. Like I remember I think it was Wei from Crayon Pop on her YouTube was talking about how sometimes some members don't get given working mics. So like only like the favorite or the best singer gets the mic that works, and everyone else just has to pretend. I don't know if that still happens. That's or if it's a bit more technical now. There was a time when I think it was Music Core banned lip syncing. But by banning lip syncing, I think it meant that like you had to have a minimum of like 50% or something like that. Which I don't know if that policy is still in place. I think it is, but having seen some performances on there recently, I don't know. Which I think is one way of doing it. And then you have like in China, they've banned it entirely, though I'm not really sure again what that's going to entail. I think they probably do still have a pre-recorded backing track, and then you have the voice has to go over that. So it'd be interesting to see, because the more comments I see, more and more comments from especially from Korean fans who are critical of the amount that that modern idol groups don't sing live. And I think in a lot of ways those are justified criticisms, because as we said, you can talk about how there's energetic choreo and stuff. It makes sense to not want to have to hear all of that, but you can look back at groups like Shiny and Infinite and EXO, and they were singing live pretty consistently through all of it, as well as obviously groups who like had less energetic choreo but were still doing stuff like B2B, for example. You'd always hear their voices, always, and it's like that was part of the appeal, right? It was like, wow, they're being able to do all these crazy dance moves and they're also giving us these vocals, which is great.
The interesting thing about live performance is that it's not like the recording. So it's like, I don't want to just go watch the recording of what I already heard in person. You know, there's the little tiny things that are different about when you're singing live that make it a lot more interesting to experience. It's I understand the choreography side of it, but there's like, with Espa in particular, let me at first say I like Espa a lot. So it's not like I'm not trying to harp on them between like a bunch of episodes, but you do notice that they don't really like sing live in any of the like the music core things and stuff that I've watched on the channel. And it's not like they're good singers. Like you can tell from the songs you hear that they are good vocalists or whatever. So it's interesting because I've seen people say like, oh, they don't sing live yet because they're rookies and they need to get like comfortable and practice on the performances and stuff like that. But it's like you only get good at live singing, performing like that if you're doing it a lot. So like that practice of not doing it is not helping them prepare for singing live and dancing like that and everything. So the more they do it, if anything, they'd get better at it.
Yeah, there's this thing that goes around that says it's like SM company policy that in your first rounds of promotions they don't let you sing live fully. And I think the underwritten understanding that it's like to prevent any like vocal cracks that come from nervousness or whatever, and then the scandal that follows. Because you're saying that you know when you go to see something live, you want to hear a different side of it. You don't want to just get the CD quality again, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't carry over as much here, I think. And I think for a lot of the companies, they're very keen on putting out like this, you know, crystal clear, inch perfect, exactly the same kind of performance with no mistakes. And while I think the audience is probably 50-50, I think a lot of the time people don't mind if someone sings and they're a bit, maybe if someone's like off key, it's probably worse than if their voice cracks.
Like someone's having really terrible mistakes. That's unfortunate, obviously, in a live performance, but you would hope that that's what all the training and everything was for, right, you know, like they spent a long time training to be singers and performers.
Yeah, and as you said, like there's no doubt that they're good singers, and this isn't just Esper, but this applies to everyone. It's like I don't think there is anyone really in the idol industry, except maybe perhaps for like some very, very like Nugu groups, like who don't have competent and singers. I mean, they might not always be like technically super well trained or whatever, but they sound good.
and especially from Esper recordings, I can tell you like a bad singer can't be manipulated to sound as good as those singers in Espa do. Like Winter and Ning Ning and Karina and stuff. Like they have really great talent that's already there. That I'm sure there's some recording stuff that always happens in K-pop of whatever filters and things like that, but still, regardless, that bass voice talent has to be there for it to sound that good. You're not going to make a bad singer sound that good, regardless of what you do on
there's no studio magic, like just turn a dial and it makes them sound good when they're
it
singing,
makes you
like,
sound
terribly.
like Winter and Ning Ning and stuff if they turn a certain amount of auto-tune or something. Like it doesn't work like that,
sadly.
Otherwise there'd be a lot more people singing and sounding like that in recordings, but it's the talent is there, so I just want to see them use it, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's when you see them in their own environments and stuff, you see how good they really are. Like I think that's what made something like Queendom so good, right? Because those performances were like live for the most part. There were parts where there was more AR, but like they were mostly like really live. And like with Oh My Girl stages, for example, you could really tell they were there like singing and that was what part of what made those performances so good, right? And when you see that you expect that kind of thing from a concert, and I think it's part of why it was somewhat disappointing for the SM concert that even in that you saw like Esper not singing fully live or not singing live.
The Girls on Top thing too, it's like, look at the artists you have together.
Right.
It's like, come on, you got like the the supergroup, I want to hear those real like vocal shine through. Obviously, they did that more of like a type of music video presentation
Yeah.
thing, but still, just having Solgi and Taeyeon and BOA together like that, and not like mixing their live vocals together is, you know,
Yeah.
it's a missed opportunity. I feel like when
It's
you
a
have
crime,
that.
is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you know that they could do it as well. That's
Hmm.
the thing. I think that's what makes it worse. It's never like, oh, they can't sing. It's like, why aren't they being able to show that they can sing?
Yeah.
Um, but having said all of that, maybe it's also good to respect the comfort of the artist as well. Especially when you have, if you're in the middle of a promotion cycle, especially like a really busy one where you have multiple schedules a day and you're going to perform the same song multiple times a day and
Yeah.
you're on 2 hours of sleep each day, you don't always want to be singing your heart out each stage.
Mm.
So I get that, but at the same time, that is what they train for. That's what they're there to do, and it can be disappointing, I would think, as a fan,
Their
more so
sched-
than if you just heard them make a mistake.
Yeah, like you're saying, their schedules are so crazy. I totally understand like every performance not being like live vocals, because you would get your throat would get, you know, very sore very quickly if you were just every day for like 2 weeks just constantly singing the same
Yeah.
song multiple times in the day, even like because they do multiple takes for some of those shows. So like I think you and me both agree, like the music like core type stuff where they're doing those like kind of random performances over and over, just different outfits and stuff like week by week, I'd never really care when those are lip synced,
Yeah.
really. It's like when it's a concert or when it's a special event thing like Mama or something, where I want that like live experience.
Yeah, it always does like gets me a bit when you get like the end of year festivals and then it's essentially just another music show performance but with a dance break
Yeah.
or like with a bit of a special intro or something. It's like, you know, that's where you really would expect and want and hope to be seeing them sing live and properly. And again, I get it, because it's like if they make the mistake, then there's all the articles saying, oh, so and so's vocals are bad. I mean, I think, well, attached to this, I guess we could talk about the encore stages, right?
Mm.
So like when a group wins on a music show, then they have to come back out and they have to sing the song again, but like they have to sing live.
Mm-hmm.
And it's less serious, like it's them also doing like thank you speeches and
Yeah, I've
having
seen
fun and
twice do the
whatever.
thing where they brought like ice cubes out or whatever when
Yeah,
it was the
when
encore
Nayo gets
thing.
caught on
Yeah.
camera with the ice cubes. And so yes, they use it as fun, but a lot of people do kind of put that under intense scrutiny and look at it like, okay, let's see how their vocals are. And there was that issue, was it last year with Twice, where Momo's live vocals were heavily criticized because of what she sounded like on the encore stage, which has meant then that she like has seemed much more nervous on encore stages after that and doesn't want to sing and like has passed up the opportunity, like skipped her line or like turned away and stuff, perhaps because of that.
Yeah.
Which is shitty, especially because Momo rarely gets the chance to actually sing in what her normal comfortable register in Twice songs. They always
like, give her that high like nasally pitch that's kind of out of her vocal range most of the time, which it's like it sucks in that case, because it's like, you know, one bad day could make you seem like you're really bad at what you do,
especially
or something. But it's
especially
like,
with how high Twice's songs usually are.
It's the choruses are like impossible sometimes. Like Can't Stop Me's chorus. No way in hell is that note in the chorus from Can't Stop Me live being like, like there's no way. I'm sorry. Like there's gonna be a mistake.
When they were recording that, in order for her to be able to hit that note in the chorus, she had to lie down on the floor. Yeah. Which I don't, obviously it doesn't necessarily make a difference, but that's like where she was. I mean, we've seen that. I
They
think
had
we've
to
seen
like
things
the
like that before,
diaphragm
like,
had to have like pressure.
yeah,
It's
and obviously you're not going to be able to replicate that at live stages, are
no.
you? Especially if you've just been dancing. And like, I think it was on what is either Produce 48 or Produce 101. I can't remember, and it was either Somi or One Young. And I think it was Somi, and like trying to hit a high note, and in order to do it, she was like pulling her hair. That was like the thing that did it. She pulled her hair back, and that like helped her hit
So
the note.
that's one of the things, like when they make a song that's just got like unrealistic like expectations like that, where you make someone do something out of their vocal range in a recording, and then you're like, now go do that live. It's
Do that
like,
every time
excuse
now.
me. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna hurt myself if I do that. Like that's not good for me to do that.
Especially if it's like a belt, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like it's meant to be like the vocal highlight of the song. And it's like the riskiest part to sing. Like, the part that always sticks out to me is Bacon's part in Jopping.
Yeah.
You know, that like really like yeah, like he sounds like Matt Bellamy or someone just like in the back. But it's
SM
like,
has some hard
yeah.
ones, like Happiness with Windy and stuff. They have some ones where it's like SM Entertainment has some ones where it's like, oh, you're really pushing them on the limits there. Like
SM has always had that thing of having like very strong vocalists. Yeah. They've always prioritized, I think, having exceptionally good vocalists. And I mean, they've had so many over the years, right? And you have people like Bacon and Chen and Taeyeon and so on, who 9 times out of 10 or more are going to hit those notes live when they sing them. But they do have those ones where they don't. Yeah. And like you can easily find on YouTube, like, and usually from concerts and stuff, admittedly, where they've been doing something for 2 hours and then they try and do it and it doesn't sound very good, or the voice crack forward.
I've seen one where Taeyeon has the earpiece in and Tiffany kind of goes a little flat and she like pulls. It's kind of, it was a funny clip because it's not like Tiffany can sing, so it's just like a bad moment, Yeah. And then you can even see it's just like, nope. No, yeah. I mean that one bad mistake, people are gonna remember way more than the other 9 times that you nailed the note,
Yeah,
that's why I'm sure the rookie groups get really scared. I can understand it. Like for aespa, I'm sure the SM Entertainment wants them to just feel really, really comfortable in their live performance so they don't have any kind of like shaky nerves when singing. Obviously,
yeah,
because you can tell when someone's singing nervously. It's very noticeable. Like,
and it's like one of the most damaging thing, or like the things that makes your voice worse is when you're singing nervously. Like confidence is a surprising amount of good singing.
It's like not just singing. Like if you play an instrument very nervous, it's just so obvious. There's just there's something to it. You can feel like the energy of it,
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that happens with dancing too, but they always seem to be very in it with the choreography side of things.
Yeah, it is rarer to see mistakes in choreography, at least very obvious mistakes. I mean, you might see like someone might be slightly too fast or offbeat or something, but it's harder to pick up on unless you're a trained dancer and B, specifically looking for it, whereas anyone can hear when something doesn't sound quite right.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more glaring. Same with rap as well. Like you have to imagine that because rap tends to be one of the main sections that is less that is more live, right? Like the rappers tend to have the voices come through more, mostly because they don't have to dance when they do it. They just kind of can stand there while the other members are doing choreography and they can do their rap.
There's not really like a note per se that they have to struggle to get to or anything. It's usually stagnant on one key, just
So it just comes a matter of breathing and getting the lyrics right. And like there must be times where people stumble over the words and just get it wrong and something, right? But
the memorization, I'm sure, is difficult, if there's a lot in a rap part, but sometimes like Lisa style like rap things in Blackpink and stuff, where it becomes more of a stylistic thing. One of the things that can be very disappointing about rap parts is when the style of the recording, they don't have any of that style in the live performance. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like sometimes it's like, oh, like a lot of, I hate using the word swag, but there's like a lot of that like swagger to the rap, you know? And then
yeah.
live it'll be like more talking rap or whatever, and it's like interesting, kind of like it is live, so I'm happy that you're doing it live, but it's like I want a little bit of that style.
You want
you
that
have.
charisma.
Yeah.
You want that, the personality that comes through. I guess the other advantage, especially for groups, is that like your individual part is not that long.
Yeah.
No, so you don't have that much to memorize per song. Obviously, the smaller the group and the bigger your role in the group, the more you have to remember. But some some groups will have to remember. I have to remember my one line for this song. Just make sure I come at the right time, and we're good.
I feel like Oh My Girl fused rap really great in like Dun Dun Dance. Like it's Mimi, right? The rapper.
Yeah.
I feel like her style in the live performances really comes through. Like really well. Like there's nothing where I'm like, oh, you're nothing like the recording or anything like that. Like she really gets it.
Well, she has
like
a very
live,
strong,
nails the vibe,
strong personality that comes through. Yeah, I think Oh My God are a great example of an idol group that performs live really well. And you can definitely tell there's a difference between like Sungi is so loud on their in their live stages, like you can really hear her. Like, and not only is like not only is she loud, like is her AR like super low, but she herself is really loud as well. Whereas like Hyojung, I imagine, is at the same kind of level, but she's much more controlled and she doesn't sing as loudly. In their main vocal parts or whatever. But
Sungi's parts coming in live is like the Kool-Aid man punching a hole in the wall. It's like, I'm here.
Yeah. So Sungi's one of the types of idols who was just like, there ain't no way in hell I'm not singing live at every possible opportunity, which obviously I have a immense amount of respect for. But then you hear like Aaron and Jiho, for example, will have their AR higher because their voices are much softer, and they and to be honest, in a way, this is why I kind of think that that live AR and stuff is quite cool, because they essentially end up, if they're singing live but they also have quite a strong backing track at the same time, it essentially sounds like they're harmonizing with themselves. And you get like a richer harmony as a result of it. You have two voices coming through that sound the same, and as long as they're at the same note, the same key, it sounds good.
Well, yeah, that's like, the dangerous thing when you are singing with the backing vocal. It's like it's going to be really obvious if you're messing up, because that one's going to be perfectly in key. And then if you go a little flat, it's like, oh, that's when it becomes way more noticeable. But I don't mind, like the backing track going through the whole song with vocals and stuff. Like I noticed Twice seems to do that a lot with the choruses and stuff, and I never have a problem with it, because you can still hear the live inflections on like Nayeon's voice and Jio's voice when they're still singing,
Yeah, I think ultimately what it comes down to is how much it affects your enjoyment of the song. And there's definitely plenty of songs where it doesn't really make that much of a difference, because you're vibing with the song so much. It's like, how much would hearing these vocals that differently make a difference? Not that much. But then there's parts of songs where it's like it really would make an improvement if you could hear it live. Like for aespa's songs, for example, like you don't need to hear the like give me now, give me now. You don't have to hear that live. But when it comes to the bridge, and when Ning Ning is like meant to be, and Ning Ning and Winter are meant to be like proper singing, it's like if that was coming through live, it would sound like it would be so gratifying, right? But it's when I have yet to see like a really compelling aespa live stage, and I hope that we will get
overdubbed like group vocal parts in songs don't need to be live.
Yeah,
like you're saying, like it's when it's soloed out to them doing a vocal run, and when it's a rap part, that's when we really want to experience that, like their talent naturally doing it, versus just like, okay, I've heard this because I've listened to the recording of the song, because sometimes I really enjoy when there's like a vocal run like they have in Savage. They have a lot in like Next Level towards the end as well,
Yeah.
where they sometimes, if they do something a little different with it, it's a lot more interesting. It's like, oh, live they kind of like messed around with it, a little bit, rather than just doing the same exact one from the recording.
Yeah. And like you would see that with like Girls' Generation and stuff, you'd see them start to mix up things and add different ad libs and stuff in, and that was part of the enjoyment of it. Like it meant that the big stages they did for different songs, that no one of them would sound exactly alike another one. You could be like, oh, I love how in this stage, this performance, they did it like this, but in this one they did it like this, and it's definitely something that I think groups should aim towards. But
I understand the pressure of it, because like K-pop as a genre has way higher expectations of perfection than like other genres of music do. Like, it's expected to just be really polished, and if it's not, it's like almost looked down upon, like versus like in certain live music genres with like rock and metal, and I would say just about every genre, I would say, except for pop, has a lot more leniency on not being perfect. Pop in general, I would say, is like the genre where perfection is really expected the most. Like,
and also where lip syncing gets the most flack, or it's where it's most prevalent, and where it gets flack as a result. Like I remember when I was a kid watching like late night music shows or whatever, and my mom would be like, oh, they're not singing live. It's a shame. She always be like, she's miming.
Yeah, they would always be the idea of like, oh, they must not be a good singer because they're lip syncing. It's like instantly
they have a ghost singer.
Yeah.
Oh, to be fair, maybe that's maybe a different topic, but the idea of doubling and ghost singing and stuff. But
there's like the famous Ashley Simpson thing, right? That happened on Saturday Night Live, and she started doing the. Is there a K-pop equivalent of that happening? I can't even. I mean,
there's been times where the wrong song has come out, like they started playing the wrong one, or the sound is cut out completely. But that's always actually. I've often started thinking that some groups might do that deliberately. They deliberately stage it so that the sound cuts out, and then they all sing live, and everyone goes,
acapella.
Wow.
Oh, they're really good.
Yeah, there was a cool one where Red Velvet's AR was playing. It played at like 2 times speed, and they like kept the choreo out, so they just did like the choreo at twice the speed or something. That was pretty dope. But there was ones like, I think EXID had one where the sound was faulty at a concert, and they just sang the whole song a cappella. Everglow had one where their sound cut out, and at first they restarted, and then it cut out again, and then they just got the crowd to like, so they're doing Bon Bon Chocolat, and they got the crowd to like
that's dope. Like when you get the crowd involved like that, like, and you do it all a cappella, that's really cool. Like,
and then they were laughing when they heard like or the crowd like say the Korean lyrics and everyone like pronounced it wrong or got it wrong, and then they like, so it's like you can make that kind of thing fun, right?
That's like something people will always remember, like experiencing that versus just seeing a pre-recorded track, like it's way more interesting the way you're describing. Like, I think I've seen one too where Red Velvet did sing like a cappella, and when the track was gone. Yeah, I just can't remember what song it was.
I think they did Bad Boy. They were like, but they like opened that. They were like, "What song do you want to hear?" And then the crowd like requested they do Bad Boy, and they just sang it a cappella, which is it's cool, and it's like that's what showmanship and being an artist on stage is all about, right?
I saw Red Velvet live, and the thing that was really like, so between seeing Blackpink and Red Velvet live, Blackpink sang live and then kind of took the choreography to like minimum, and then but Red Velvet, they sang live and they really did like the choreography of it. You know what I mean? Like, they're really still committed to the full like choreography and doing the live vocals, which was obvious at some points. You could hear like the breathing of it, you know, and stuff in the concert. But I think I enjoyed it a lot, even with like when it's noticeable that they're like not hitting the notes as good as they would if they weren't doing like the full dum 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 like dance thing, you know. But it's a lot more enjoyable because you're still hearing a live inflection. I'll remember like Solgi live was really impressive when I saw them because she was really stable singing live and then doing really committed to the choreography or whatever.
Solgi's just unreal good, basically. Like,
I just remember being amazed. I was like, she's like not half committing to the choreography and she's still singing her parts. Like, it's really impressive when that happens.
Because I've often thought that with, especially if you have a hand mic, right? Like you're not gonna do like full hand movements. You're gonna do like one hand and like keep it, you know. But so, and this is more of a criticism of Mama than anything else. But like, so I will now talk about nature. So they, I'll put a disclaimer up. This is my nature segment. So they had this thing they did. They used to do an a cappella version of their debut song, Allegro Cantabile. And I remember seeing a video of that on YouTube where they recorded it, and like it was very obviously live. Like they were very obviously doing an a cappella segment live. Like you could tell because of how they were, obviously how it sounded, but the way they were looking at each other and like someone was keeping time and like bringing each other in and stuff. And they did that as an intro for their rookie performance at Mama in 2018, but it wasn't live. And it's like, it's just, I mean, it's like, why? Like they can do it. Like let them do it. It's so dumb making a group do an a cappella stage where they don't do it live. Like it's stupid.
Especially when there's an example of them doing it live already. Like, you know, like I can understand maybe if Mama was like, "Have you done this before?" or something. Right. But they obviously have. So it's very stupid when that. Well. That's the perfect example of like, because we've seen those Mama performances and we've seen the groups on there have really great live performances, and then the Mama performance will obviously have like recorded vocals or something, and it's like, what is the point of a special like end of year performance thing for me to see something I already saw on one of the smaller like little like weekly performances that they have, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's just a bigger stage with different clothes of what we've already seen throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
I know that there's also cases where it's the company themselves who stop their artists from singing for whatever reason. So like when I've gone to signature fan meets, fan signs recently, they always do a performance at the end, but they're not mic'd up, so like we know they're not singing live. They're basically just dancing to the song. But then one of them, so because they do that after they've like done a bit where they like talk to us, where they're talking with mics, talking to us. There was one where they kept them. They only kept like two of them, and they like passed them around, and each member like actually did their part, and they were like full on doing their like when they like the belts and everything, and I'm like, they were hitting it like immaculately, and I'm like, bruh, if this is in the locker, this is the end of the day after you've already been to a music show earlier in the day and everything. Like, what? Like, why is the company so determined to not have them sing live when, especially if you're a rookie group or, I mean, they're not really rookies, but like a less known group, it would give them so much more room to become famous if they were like, oh, look at this like small group hitting these live vocals every time, you know, because that was something that stood out to me for Nature as well. Like Nature really commit to singing live on music shows and stuff, and it's like you love to hear that, and it's like you can really tell because like especially at the start of Girls, for example, because Sabom starts that on the floor like this, her voice is like really muffled because he's like surrounded by hair and stuff, but it's like you can hear it.
If anything, too, for the groups not from like the big three labels, I would think there'd be more leniency towards any like imperfection or anything like that, wouldn't there? Like
Yeah.
I would think it's the big three labels where it'd be like, whoa, why are you making a mistake or something, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I imagine that it would be safer for the smaller groups to have live performance versus like an SM Entertainment girl group having a live performance and really messing up or something, you know?
Yeah. Especially because it does get used as like as ammunition between
Mm-hmm.
fandoms, right? Or even in the media, but like so like BTS are pretty really good at singing live, right? They often really commit to singing live on like any stage that they do, which is great. And they have some pretty complex and energetic choreo too, and they sing through it. It's part of the reason why they're why they're so successful, right? But fans will love to use that as like, oh, we sing more live. Our group sings more live than yours. Oh, ours sound better. And like there's even like the argument of like, oh, ours sound closer to the CD than yours. Because I know that there's some artists that I think I can think of who sound not worse, but just they don't sound exactly the same as they do on CD, especially ones with very distinctive
There have
vocal
definitely
tones,
been
right?
bands I've seen where I've gone, is that the vocalist? Like,
But less so for the singers. This is usually for rappers, from what I've noticed. So like Changbin from Stray Kids, for example, when I hear he usually will, you know, he's normally always live, but his live voice is different, and when you can hear they are in the background, and it sounds notably different. Not worse, just different. People like Hyuna as well. Hyuna's got such a distinct rapping tone, right? But when she does it live, she doesn't always have quite the same level of like attack in her,
recording.
in her
There's like filters that certain vocalists get very comfortable having on their voice for recording that really actually make like dramatic differences of tone sometimes.
Yeah.
And I've noticed like Rage Against the Machine, like the recordings, he always has that certain filter on his voice when he's doing like that heavier like da, 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 rap, and when you hear it live it doesn't have that filter on there, so it's like way less dramatic. You know, like
right, yeah,
it, so
makes sense.
I can imagine that happens in K-pop too. There's someone who they found a filter that really fits a tone.
Yeah, but they just
want.
like the sound of the way it sounds in that. Yeah, through that, and then it's obviously different live. Yeah, that's probably the most likely thing. And then it's always then even more shocking when you hear people who sound like the same.
Yeah,
especially when it's so different. So like Yeon from CLC, for example. I remember we remember watching Good Girl.
Yeah,
how her like speaking voice is so like small and cute, and her singing voice is so like clear, and then her rapping voice is just like, yeah,
her whole vibe just switches, you know, in performance versus like personality switch.
Yeah, just completely different, but cool nonetheless.
Taeyeon is someone I've always found so impressive because like I listen to her recordings and then her live voice just has so much of that same quality to it, you know? There's nothing where I listen to and you just know the live and the recording is just like a little bit of a polished version of her live vocal. Like there's not anything dramatic they've done, you know, in the recording process. You just know she's that good. You're like, oh my god, it's Taeyeon. You know, she's that good. Like
when you know it's the natural voice. There's some idols who talk exactly like they sound when they sing, like Dummy. Dummy.
Sure, Dummy.
Yeah.
The Dummy rap actually live is great. Like so she's a perfect example of someone who just has her vibe from the recording live like perfectly nailed down.
Yeah. For sure, Dreamcatcher are already another very, very good live group. I mean, we're going to turn this into like a who do we think are the best?
Yeah, these groups are good live, and the rest suck.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely another strong example. And I do think there is a trend that the groups from smaller companies or whatever tends to have more commitment to being live. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're better live, but they do tend to commit to it more.
They have more to gain, you know?
Yeah, more to gain and less to lose, for sure.
I don't know if there was is there anything that you feel like we didn't cover on lip sync, and I can't think of anything.
I don't think so.
Anyone can always let us know. I feel like there's always something, you know, in hindsight where you're like, oh, could have brought that up or something, but you know, You can't think about that. So that is it for topic 1, lip syncing. Feel free to let us know in the comments what groups you feel you wish you would maybe see do more live vocal. Obviously without hate. If anyone comes in here throwing some hate towards anything, I'm just going to delete your comment. I have that power. All right. Topic 2. We're going to kind of mesh 3 things together, but we're going to start with pre-orders. And I kind of want to say it first about pre-orders. Like, obviously through game industry, I know really well about like pre-ordering something. You have like a developer you're a big fan of, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I like all their other games. I'm sure I'm gonna like this game. Totally haven't been burnt like that. Cyberpunk 2077. It's like, so it's an interesting concept in music because it's like, if you hear a teaser of something and you're like, oh, I don't know stylistically if I'm gonna enjoy this, but then you're such a big fan of the group that you just still want to support them, which I'm sure happens a lot, where it's like, I don't know that I'll enjoy this comeback, but I love this group, I'm gonna buy it anyways. I don't know if you have personally have done that.
No comment. Yeah, I mean, so I've always tried to be a musical purist, right? Like, the reason I got into K-pop in the first place was because I like the music, and there's plenty of groups where I love some of their songs and then I haven't liked others of their songs, and I'm not interested in buying an album, even if I really like a group or I really like a member, if I don't vibe with the song. And I will, generally speaking, I will always go and listen to something before I consider buying it. But especially while I was in the UK and I was sort of collecting elements of K-pop stuff, pre-ordering was had a different incentive, and that's these pre-order photo cards, because you can only get pre-order bonus photo cards from pre-ordering. If you don't get them yourself that way, you have to then go into the community markets to trade or buy them.
Yeah, it's like when they wanted you to pre-order a game to get one special item, and it's like, oh, you bastard. Like... Right.
But with gaming, I never cared. I was never bothered about it. But with the photo cards, yeah, there are some things I would do for some cards of my biases or whatever. Especially because if you buy them on their own, you're spending like $5 plus shipping to get one photo card or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I totally didn't pre-order a Sunmi album to get a photo card and photo book.
Right.
Well, I mean, it is a good incentive. Like, would I have pre-ordered without that being a part of it, you know? And if I could have just bought the album and then just got it the same way, I'm sure I did pre-order it in the back of my mind because it's like, oh, I get a photo card and a photo album with it or whatever.
Yeah. And it does kind of grate on me when you see like a group from a big company who has like 200,000 pre-orders for something, and then it's like the song comes out and it sucks, and then everyone acts like it was really good. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I mean, maybe people are really enjoying it. I'm not to judge that much, but I'm judging, but not that much. But it's just, it's frustrating then when you see groups release really, really good music, in my opinion. Well, good objectively, and I like it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then they don't get the same volume of sales and whatnot. Obviously, that's not pre-ordering's fault as a concept. That's how the industry works. But it does get a little bit crazy, the kind of numbers that you see, and the way that connects to the physical album industry as a whole. It certainly enables a lot of, or encourages a lot of like crazy quantities of pre-orders and stuff, of ordering in general, which can be a bit wild.
There's definitely artists that I would have no problem pre-ordering because I consistently enjoy their releases. Like, And even releases where I at first think I maybe am not a huge fan of, I always tend to warm up to it. Like Red Velvet, hands down, I'd pre-order it any day of the week. Like Red Velvet, I feel like always is gonna have something that I like, B-side or something. Like there's just gonna be something I enjoy. And I'm sure it feels the same with Sun Me to me or something, but I imagine like if I pre-ordered because I'm a big fan of Lisa from Blackpink, but I imagine if I like pre-ordered that album that I would have just been like, I kind of wish I had heard this before I pre-ordered it or something, because it's not, I don't want to like, I'm sure there's plenty of people, I know there's plenty of people who enjoyed La Lisa and Money. I enjoyed the videos. I struggle with some of the music, let's say, of it. It's very westernized, I would say, I feel. Yeah. So maybe that's why I don't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to, because I was very excited at first. It's like Lisa, Blackpink, like, yeah, I was really looking forward to the solo, and I was like expecting some real hard rap coming in and stuff, and then it was just kind of like, oh, when it happened for me, like, but if I pre-ordered, then I wonder if in the back of my mind I would try to make myself enjoy it more, like you were kind of saying, like,
right, it's like to get that value that you put into it in the first place, right? Like if you haven't bought the album, you can just listen to the song and be like, nah, not for me, and then just move on like a normal sane human being. But if you pre-ordered the album, and like there's an LP as well, like a vinyl for it, which is currently like the highest. It's like number 4 on the Gowan album chart for the new year or something, which is like the highest female act at the moment. The Volunteers is in 8th. Shouts out.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just if you put that much money into something, you're more obligated to try and make yourself like it, right?
Yeah, it's like when I tried to convince friends that Cyberpunk was good after I pre-ordered it, then as I kept playing it, I cried a little inside.
But that, you do obviously get more from buying the album, from pre-ordering the album, than just the music itself, right? And that's kind of why K-pop's physical market has become such a big thing. Like, yes, there's the pre-order photo cards, but the albums themselves always carry with them stuff, right? Like there's always a photo book and stuff, which is always nice to look at. Obviously, there's the photo cards within them. The album ones, there's usually a poster or something else. Often there'll be some other kind of merch stuff, and it varies. The smaller groups don't have as much stuff. Single albums don't have as much stuff as mini albums. Mini albums don't have as much stuff as full albums, and so on. But you are getting a package, and it's normally a very nicely put together, like, it feels nice. It's nice to unbox and go through, and you feel like you have some valuable thing, as well as the collectible element of it. Yeah. On top of course, the enjoyment you can get out of feeling like you're supporting your group, which is a big thing for me, I think. So, like my kind of policy is like for big artists, unless I start obsessively collecting one member, which I'm not doing. I would only buy an album if I really like it. If I listen to it and I really like it, I'll go to a music store here and buy that album.
Because you want to support it. It's like, okay, this was really cool. I want them to know I think it's really cool. Like, I want the label to know that this was a cool direction that they went and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have an album like that I can, if I want to, at some point, put the CD on and listen to it, you know? Not that I have many opportunities to do that, but, and then, but if it's a group that I'm very attached to, especially a smaller one like Nature, like I will buy the hell out of those that, because I want to, not only do I want the photo cards and whatnot, but I also want to have their numbers look good. I want the company to think there are fans out here who are willing to support us for what we do, and it's worth doing more, especially with groups where it's like you feel like they are on the verge of, oh, if this comeback doesn't do well, we might call it quits type thing. Like, you want to put as much as you can into it because you want them to stay around and keep making music.
It's kind of almost like doing a GoFundMe, it seems like, when it's a smaller group and you're buying more. It's like you're trying to support that group and keep them afloat, essentially, like let them know, like, I want you to keep going, you know, where when it's a really big company like SM and you're buying multiple copies or whatever, and they're already selling so many copies
Yeah.
and stuff. That's when I guess it's more about inflating their sales, you know, to make them look even bigger than they already are.
Yeah,
It's
so
an
there
interesting
comes to
thing.
be different reasons why people end up buying so many copies. So I mean, so before we started recording this, showed you that picture of the Purple Kiss
Yeah.
photo cards, where so for each of the different shops that offers events, so like My Music Taste and Mocket Shop and Everline and all these different companies, they each have their own set of photo cards printed, so the members will take. And so a lot of the time the differences between those ones are minimal at best. You know, you
A
might
little
get
more
like,
side profile or
yeah,
something.
like literally just changing the angle a teensy bit, because I actually spoke to Chloe from Signature about this, because I was curious, because she's a newly debuted idol, right? She only joined the industry, she only joined the company 6 months ago.
Oh.
And she'd never debuted or anything before that. I was like, what was it like? What was kind of weird? How did you get? How does it feel? The question I asked her was, how does it feel to know that people are now going to be trading pictures of your face and assigning value to an image of your face, you know? And she was like, I didn't really think about it, because the process of taking it is like, you just you're in an outfit and you have to kind of take a particular pose or whatever, and they take like 50 pictures and then they pick the best one. I mean, maybe some groups will have, the idols themselves will be able to say, I like this one.
Yeah.
But and she was like, I haven't even seen them. She's like, I haven't even seen what the final thing looks like. And then she was like, then she was kind of like, okay, but how much are people gonna pay? You know, she was curious. Like, she was like, especially if you're like, if one member's going for $10, but I'm only going for $5, I would be like, I mean, I personally would be upset.
Who has the highest value?
Yeah, because you do see members being priced differently for different groups and stuff. But
yeah, I've seen like in fan cams sometimes for groups where you'll see one member just dramatically get more views than another one or something, and it's interesting. It's like, I guess that member's just really popular right now or something. You know, it's like,
here's a Chloe photo card. Here you are.
Hey.
I would pay $5. Fortunately, there's hundreds here now, but it's I get that that's why a lot of people end up buying loads and loads of albums, because they want the cards. And then the other thing is for special events, namely for fan signs and video call events that these shops will put on, where one album purchase equates to a ticket with a chance of getting in. And the thing is, it's like you buy an album and you're guaranteed to get one of those like special photo cards. So there's still an incentive to buy it nonetheless. If you want to get one of each member, then maybe you need to buy 7 copies or whatever, and you can pick which member you get.
Oh, you can pick which member you get when you buy.
Maybe sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And then if you want to get into a fan sign, depending on the popularity of the group and how many they're selling, you might have to buy it anywhere from 10 to 50 or more.
Yeah, I've noticed Etsy fan signs seem like really difficult to be a part of, or like even the meeting, like the fan meetings. It seems like it's like, go to this special site selling the specific version of the album, and it's like a lottery if you bought the right one.
Yeah.
To which I get, because it's obviously from JYP, so it's a much bigger amount, larger amount of people that want to meet them.
That's one fan sign. That was enough to get one fan sign for Signature. Probably could have done it with less. I think that was 14. It's probably at this point, especially the later they go, like the more events they have, the less demand they are. So it's easier to get into. But that's bearing in mind their total sales for this album is like 5,000. So it's still a sizable chunk out of. I mean, I think between Hanny's orders for me and the ones that have come through here, it's like over 350 or something. So there's a solid chunk of their total sales has come through this. And that's meant that I've been able to go to all these fan signs and have a video call and stuff. And that's a big part of what people are incentivized to do. But with those bigger groups, like Ava, for example, from the Discord, he got 50 Dreamcatcher albums to try and get into a video call and didn't get it.
That's crazy because it's a lottery at that point. Yeah, you have that percentage of chance regardless of how many you buy.
Yeah, there was a story of a fan. I think she was a Chinese or Korean fan who wanted to get into a 101 fan sign when they were active. She bought 210 albums. She paid, I think it was 4 million won she paid, so about 4,000 USD.
There's no limit on that site when you just like.
I think she bought these in person. I think she bought these at a store, and she didn't get in. Didn't get in on that. I think for twice or whatever, you are looking at least 100 to stand a chance of getting into a video call or something like that. What also sucks as well is that you end up with the same kind of set of rich fans who go to every one because they're the only ones who can consistently afford to get in.
Someone buys like 5,000 copies or something, you know.
Yeah,
it's like
you see that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And especially the ones who you can kind of get through it by being a group order manager. So like if people are after the photo cards, you host the order essentially. So you buy all of their albums, you collect all the money, and then everything comes to you, and then you send out the individual photo cards to people who want them. So they say, I want to get this member, but you can't order a specific member. You just join a group, because if there's 30 other people ordering an album or 2 albums or whatever, there's a high chance that member will be one of them, and then you can get that card for yourself.
Yeah.
And
it's a good thing I'm a fan of Sunmi, so I always know whose photo card I'm getting.
That's true. You will always pull Sunmi reliably. But that obviously means that the person who places the order gets 30 tickets or whatever, so they can have a high chance of getting in. But the downside to all of this, obviously, is something that's been talked about more and more, is the environmental impact. Because as much as I would want to, there's no demand for me to be able to sell on these albums, especially because I've taken the photo cards and the inclusions and stuff out, right, which is the thing that people want. So what do I do with them? I can't just keep 100 albums stacked up in the corner of my room forever. Eventually they have to go, and unfortunately albums usually aren't fully recyclable, and so it creates a lot of waste. And you see these seen in the Korean news lately, like pictures of just like boxes of albums and stuff like just left for trash outside, and people are like, why why is this the only way? Some shops are actually
even for a loss, you can't just like sell it.
I don't think I would struggle to give these away.
I see.
For if it was a group, if it was like Oh My Girl or something like that, I could sell the albums, yeah. But and just have people pay shipping only or whatever. For me,
when the fan base isn't like massive, it's harder to get when you have like 100 of them to be like, because you might be like, here, do you want this album? And they have no idea who it is or something. That makes it interesting. Which for me, I would just be like, oh, I don't know who it is. I'll take it. Like,
yeah.
But I can see how that wouldn't be the same for everyone. It's interesting.
I'm tempted to just go around my office and hand out copies as like a little present.
Hey, it's promotion, free promotion for signature.
Yeah,
I'll take one.
Well, yeah, if you want.
I have to pay the shipping cost.
I have to ship it. Yeah, exactly. I have to ship it overseas, which makes it a bit of a challenge.
It would have been interesting when we did like the nature fan meetings to see if me and you had met the same members, if we got the same photo card or whatever, like how different our photo cards were. I would have liked to have seen like how different of a photo card and signature we got and stuff if we had the same two members.
Certainly the sign stuff is like, it's theirs, right?
Yeah.
So there's that added personal touch to it.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that's why being a fan of like a smaller group is so much better, because it's so much easier to interact with them, especially like the nature vid calls. It was just like, oh, I fancy talking to this member now, and you just buy a ticket and then you just go talk to them. There was no like faff around it at all.
I know I tried to find how I could do just a Itzy Cherry Young fan call, but it's not a thing. No. It's like, oh, you gotta buy like specific Itzy album and have luck of the draw, basically.
Yeah.
And I've seen people in our Discord, you know, like you were talking about Ava, and I've seen Blueberry try it where they buy like a decent amount to try and win that meeting, the fan meeting, and it's like, it's not easy. It's really not easy. It's pure luck, really, unless you are buying like 10,000 copies or something.
Yeah, like you could make it so you're like almost guaranteed, and like for these signature ones, it's like oh, there's 14 albums in this order. I know I'm getting in. There's no way I'm not, right?
Yeah.
And then actually Ava had one. He had one the other day, which he got from it wasn't an album. There was like a merch thing with like a lucky draw, 1 ticket per order, just complete like chance with Chungha, and he won it. He won that. So he had a video call with freaking Chungha of buying like a hoodie or something. Awesome. And then, but he doesn't get one for 50 Dreamcatcher albums, which cost like $700 or whatever. Like, yeah, it is that way sometimes. But he reckons that's his luck coming full circle, the not getting the Dreamcatcher one and then somehow getting the Chungha one.
Just bought one hoodie and it's like, hey, you get to meet Chungha.
Yeah, exactly. But some companies are starting to do things where you can now choose an option to not actually get the albums delivered. So if you're just buying in order to get into a fan sign or a video call or something, you can choose not to have the physical albums shipped to you, which is really good.
Interesting concept. That's So you buy, but you get it digitally.
No, you get nothing.
You get nothing.
But you get the
so
tickets.
It's just you're just buying the lottery chance, basically.
Yeah, but of course, when you have when you go to a fan sign, they give you an album, and then like each member will then in turn like write a message in that for you. So you still get an album, and it's like a special one with the fan sign stuff, which
is a lot nicer to get, really, than just like the shipped album to you.
But if you're invested in the photo cards as well, there's no option to get just photo cards sent to you. Like you have to get the album.
It's part of the package.
Yeah. It
is, yeah. Like on the environment side of things, I could see how it's worrisome. Like so many physical copies of everything, but it's hard to digitally do something like that has the same value as having a physical photo card or something like that. Like I don't know digitally how they could have the same kind of incentive.
Yeah, because I've received like digital signs and stuff from nature and stuff before, and it's cute and all, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have the same niceness.
It's not something you can display anywhere or anything to. Yeah. When you have something digital, it's like, it's on my computer. Cool. Like
yeah, exactly. So then the other thing with buying physicals is that it impacts music shows. So if you want your group to be in with a chance of getting a win on a music show, each music show obviously has slightly different criteria and settings and stuff, and some of them are based off different charts and whatnot. So it's like you have to stream on different services and all of that, but physical sales is always a huge component of that.
I paid a little more to get the Sunmi album on a website that showed up in the charts in Korea if you bought the album. Whereas if you bought it off like Amazon or something, it doesn't show up in their charts or whatever versus like the site who
Some of
did
them
buy
don't.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, so Hantio certification is one thing that just, if anything, that just helps the company know that someone has bought the album properly,
Yeah.
and it will help it charts and whatnot. Yeah, but yeah, then so if you want, yeah, when you see groups who have huge sale, like the million seller groups, like your NCTs and your BTSs and whatnot, that's, you see them, just, you're guaranteed to have them getting the max score for physicals, or very high score for physical sales, so they're in with a really good shot of just guaranteeing wins across the board, combined with digitals and stuff. But then you have really funny situations where, like, if you don't have a particular one score is too low, or compared to the other one, you have situations, so like Kepler, for example. Kepler was struggling to be eligible because they were out of the charts. They weren't in the charts for in Korea at all. And they needed to at least be in the top 100 or something on Bugs in order to be eligible for a music show win. But as soon as people streamed on Bugs enough to bring them back into that chart, and the song is starting to catch on a bit more in Korea now, their 200,000 plus sales means that they're immediate. Not only are they suddenly eligible, they're like immediately like a front runner to win.
I mean, you saw them and Stacey and Ive were at the award shows, and that had to do with the physical copy sales, right? Of like things.
Some of them, yeah. Each one is different. I'm not gonna reel off the top of my head how each show determines its winners. But
when Dreamcatcher has released so many bangers over the years and stuff, is the lack of like a win because of the lack of like the physical sales in Korea of stuff? Like
it's more for the lack of digital, lack of charting,
lack of like people streaming it on specific sites and stuff
in Korea.
Is what affects that. Okay,
yeah,
because I feel like Dreamcatcher people buy their stuff a lot. Like
they do, yeah, especially recently, and that's why we've seen Dreamcatcher come really close a couple times to getting wins on the show, is because of their physicals, and the fact that a chunk of it is fan voting, right? So people go on apps or whatever that the shows run, and they vote. And they give something that you have to pay, and then you get like passes. You save up tickets, or different systems for each one, obviously. But yeah, people vote, and obviously they have a large fandom, an international fandom which can vote. But the lack of digitals means that it's very difficult to secure those wins reliably. So
it seems like the award shows don't take like the international fan base in consideration as much as they do the domestic like fan base of stuff.
Yeah,
because it's like the international fan base isn't going to be at the award show, so it's like they think a lot more about what is domestically doing well.
Yeah, the weighting for domestic is always much higher. Like I said, it does vary from show to show, but the international, I think recently, might have even been this year that Mama started putting weight on international like Spotify streams as well, or something like that, which they hadn't done before.
It makes sense because some Spotify, like I've seen like Red Velvet, I think gets like 7 million monthly listeners or something like that. It's like that's a lot. Like that's a lot of listeners.
Because I mean, Spotify only launched in Korea last year. So it's not a thing that people were really aware of. Like everyone here uses Melon or Genie or whatever. Mm-hmm. But international fans, I think Spotify and YouTube, I guess, are the primary means of consuming music. And I guess like Apple Music, maybe the other one.
I wouldn't know. I never use it.
But yeah, so obviously the way that people listening to music is different, and companies are aware that they need to be more impartial and understand how people are consuming their music, especially if you're a Nugu company and you're like, oh, no one is streaming our music, but you're not looking at all of the data. You're not looking at where international fans are streaming the music from. Then there's something to consider.
I feel like Spotify's such a well-known app used in a lot of different countries that it is a good sign of like international popularity on Spotify. Like you can really see internationally how someone's doing through Spotify, like kind of like it has so many different countries involved in the listening. Whereas I'm sure domestically some of the apps in South Korea, it's just like South Korea using the app, right?
Yeah.
So that's like a harder.
Well,
Like,
that and fans who are using that app on purpose in order to try and get their group a chance for wins and stuff.
So you're telling me I can just download one of these South Korean apps and spam Sun Me over and over again?
Yeah, you could listen to Sunmi on Bugs and single-handedly boost her up the chart if you wanted.
Just leave it running for like all day every day. That's it. I'm sure some fans do that, and that's wild.
Definitely. Fandoms have streaming guides, like how to stream effectively, how to stream on multiple platforms and stuff and everything. And this idea of artificial inflation. I mean, you say artificial, okay. It's weird because it is still fan effort, right?
It's like a job at the amount of effort they're putting into it at that point.
Yeah, it's not like a robot. Like, it's not some automated thing. And I know that some websites and stuff don't count the stream if the volume is like under 50% or something like that. Like, so you have to actually allegedly.
What if someone's like listening to music a little quieter or something? Wait, so I'm supposed to blare my music for it to count as a...
Well, these are measures, I think, that are in place to try and stop people from doing that, especially on YouTube, like boosting view counts artificially and whatnot. I mean, the thing is, you see so many different understandings of how it works that I think most of the time people are just guessing and trying to guarantee that the view works where it might not actually work that way. But we saw today, or yesterday, I think on January 12th, that billboards have taken measures against the idea of bulk buying and the way that impacts the charts. Because I think in the West, it was pretty much the standard protocol where you buy an album, you go to the store and you buy the album, and then you go home.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's no real reason to buy 20 copies or whatever. Like, whether you're supporting Green Day or The Weeknd or Limp Bizkit, it doesn't matter. The album is just an album, and that's it.
In the United States, I'd say there's more that mindset too, like, oh, they're already selling so many, and like, you know, where there's not that mindset of like, oh, I want to support them, buy a bunch of the albums. It's like, oh, they're gonna sell so many copies, I'll just, you know, I'll get one.
Yeah, maybe I'll pick one up on sale in a few months or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's never a risk of it never feels like a risk of selling out either. I never felt that when I was into bands or whatever in the West. Like, I felt like I could just go to a CD shop at any point when I was a teenager and just pick up and find a copy and just pick one up. Like, maybe if I was getting like records, like vinyl records, that would be harder. They're more collectible, right? But just buying a CD, like, nah, just find it. And if not, just hop on eBay or whatever and buy one for a few quid. Like,
the only time I own like multiple copies is like because Metallica has like the pre-remastered version. Then so I have the normal, then I bought the remastered version, then I bought like a special packaged version and stuff like that. But then it's not like I get like James Hetfield photo cards for buying Metallica albums.
So James Hetfield like this on the front cover.
I think I might close that and never look at it again if I got that in there.
Yeah, it's just less of a collectible thing and more just and I can play the CD in my car type thing, right?
Which is funny. I have the CDs and then I just end up plugging my phone in and playing the remaster on Spotify. So
like... and that's part of why the CD market has dwindled so much, right? And it's why the K-pop market has bloomed is not because of the CD. The CD, if anything, is the least valuable or sought after part of any one of those. I think the only time people care about the CDs is when you can get individual members' plates on the CDs. So like Twice have done it so you can get like 9 different CD plates. And I know people have gone to get each one.
It's genius, dude. That's literally genius marketing right there. Yeah, that is. But now that you say that, I think about that when I opened like the Sun Me album, I realized that I never cared that there was a CD in there. Like it was like, oh, there's a photo book, and like, oh, there's stickers, oh, there's a photo card thing, and there's a CD just like kind of in there.
I mean, I've actually been in situations where I've been opening an album and I'm like, what's this bit? Oh, it's the CD. Like, what's this at the back? Oh, right, it's the CD. Yeah. like I open it to be like, oh, I can't wait to see who my pulls are. Like I want to know which photo cards.
I'm just waiting for when they have it and there's not a CD in there and it's just scanning a QR code to digitally have the album or whatever.
That's definitely been a thing.
Oh,
yeah.
It's already a thing. Okay, yeah, because it makes sense. Because CDs, like, yeah, some people probably don't have a way to play a CD. Like,
yeah,
so
I mean, on
like...
the Nature 3rd anniversary kit that we got like a little tin with photo cards in and a USB stick, and the USB stick had the English version of Girls on it, as well as like some messages from each of the members.
Can I take that USB stick and upload it to Spotify?
Yeah, so the thing that Billboard did was now anyone who's buying anything to be certified on Billboard, which is most of the major retailers in the US, it only counts your orders once per customer. So if you go and buy 20 albums from Walmart or whatever, it's going to count that as one entry. So obviously, if you're very committed, maybe you can buy one in one store and then buy another in another store and another one, and it would count as
so
multiple.
you could still do it that way to change the
but it's going to be a considerable amount of effort.
There will be someone who does it. That's like, anytime it's crazy, there's someone who will do it.
And I do wonder how they'll track it. Like, is it like, oh, they see that it's this name under and this card, so it won't count? Because that seems like pretty invasive. But like, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what Billboard
online ordering. I could see how they could easily understand it or whatever. Like looking through one site, someone bought like a bunch of copies or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, what if someone just uses like different credit cards or like...
Yeah, so it's not going to be a perfectly infallible system. It will be a fallible system. But it's going to go some way to impacting the way that K-pop artists in particular are trending on Billboard. Will it be enough to make a notable difference? I don't know. I think it will be. It's more likely to make a difference in the sort of thing where you see like Twice pop up at number 60. You probably won't see that. Maybe they'll still make it into the top 100, but maybe it won't be that high. Would it stop BTS hitting number 1 when they release something next? That's an interesting thought. My initial thought is probably no, but I think it will stop them from staying there.
Yeah, the fan base is so big still that it's like, I think even without spam buying stuff, like they'll still be so high up in the charts or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like you don't need any much to show just how big BTS are in America right now. Yeah. But it will be an interesting sort of test for how they're perceived in general. I think
it will show you more about how many people are actually buying albums.
Yeah, how many people are buying albums, not how many albums are being bought, right? Which is what the whole point of Billboard is meant to be. And so I completely get why that decision has been made. I know that ARMY are not taking it very well. They view it as discrimination and stuff.
That's like admitting that you're just like buying a bunch of copies to inflate sales. So why would you be upset about it?
It's like the industry feels threatened by BTS and ARMY, so they have to try and change the system against us or whatever. But now's the time for ARMY to show just how big they are, right?
I don't understand that mindset though, because then that mindset makes no sense to me. That rule, there's nothing illogical about that rule or whatever. Because what if I bought like 10,000 copies of something and that showed up as 10,000 sales or whatever, but I'm one person.
Yeah.
So like
that just means that you love them a lot. I don't know. Yeah, so I'm very interested to see what the results of that will look like when we next have a major K-pop release on Billboard. I think if BTS do hit number 1 with it, regardless of this, it's even though I'm sure there will be people who try to find ways to manipulate it and get their mass buying in anyway, but it'll be very, very cool, and I think a real confirmation of their power. And something that I'm sure I can't wait to have people rub in my face aggressively while they shit on my
It'll be
the
a
groups
more
I like at the same time.
it'll be a more realistic evaluation of how big the fandoms actually are when it's by person versus by copies of sale.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get a more realistic idea of how large the fan base of particular groups really is. Like,
yeah,
because there's could be whales out there just buying like insane amounts of copies. We don't know. Like, I mean, that's
yeah, like the floating trash island in the Pacific, just piled with albums. I've often thought.
Sorry, go ahead.
So the other thing I was going to think is like with one of the main marketable things about K-pop albums physically is the different versions, right? Like you can get 2 versions or 4 versions. For Super Junior's Renaissance album, their last album, the one with House Party on it, they had 9 versions, 1 for each member. Then they also had 4 versions, like group versions. So there were 13 versions in total. For NCT, we've had releases where they've had jewel cases, like 21 or 23 different ones, 1 for each member. It's like
there's 23 members, so it's like, oh my, imagine buying for each member.
Imagine trying to collect all of NCT. It just anyway. So if you wanted to go to Target and buy even just 1 of each version, and there were 2 versions or 4 versions, and that only counts as 1, I guess you'd feel a bit more hard done by that, because it is like you're buying a different physical entity, right? Like the photo book is different, the inclusions are different, the actual physical thing is different. It's just the songs are the same. Like I get both sides of the argument in that case.
I understand the argument when you're getting different versions of the album physically or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you are just like buying a bunch of the same exact one, then I understand that being counted as 1 because you're just buying the same thing a lot. So it's like, versus like if I want the different members, you know, if I bought like a bunch of ITZY albums to get different members of ITZY, okay, those are different things. That's not like I bought like 100 of just one album that has all of them in it or something.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting to me. I wouldn't spam buy stuff unless, I guess I can't say that. I mean, if it's like Sunmi or someone, maybe I would. I guess it depends. It's a way, I guess, of showing how much you actually are a fan to some people of that particular idol.
Yeah.
But there's also like an extreme of it where it's like too much is too much, you know?
Yeah, and it's very capitalized, and it naturally prices people out, right? Mm-hmm. Which kind of sucks, because it's like, obviously that's how much you can afford is not a measure of how much you like the artist or how much of a fan you are. You know, it's just, that's just your circumstances.
How much can I safely afford to show support is a sane like way to think about it, but I'm sure that I don't want to imagine that there's someone like going hungry because they bought too many K-pop albums or something, you know.
I hope not.
I would hope it doesn't exist as something happening, but you know, when you think of something, it exists. Like, you know, like, that's a safe truth to the world, really.
And like, I've had Signature fans message me to be like, oh, hey, can you like pass on this message or something to one of the members and stuff? And I'm like, I'm sure like you could get into a vid call yourself at this point, but just by buying a handful of albums. And like, I can't afford to buy just a handful of albums, unfortunately. You know, they're not in that situation, and I completely get that, and it just makes me feel bad. You know, like I wish I could buy it for them. I mean, I could buy it for them, but I'm not going to. But it's like I wish you could extend that kind of thing, especially when if you overbuy for something. If I could get into one of them with 5 albums, but I have 14, so if I had 3 tickets and I could just give 2 of them to other people or something, would be nice.
How much money do you think a group like ITZY would make doing like what Nature does, like where we didn't have to buy like the albums, but we could actually buy to meet a specific member in like the fan meet? thing. Like, I feel like big three groups would make exponentially like larger amounts of money doing it that way than the smaller groups.
Yeah, it's obviously they're limited by just how many they can do, right? Because the girls are not going to want to sit for hours and hours on end.
There could be thousands upon thousands of
people
buying.
There would be. So what they would do is price it, right? So say they have 50 vid calls per member or whatever. You could easily charge into the hundreds for just one, and people would snap those up in an instant.
Yeah, it is logical how the bigger groups do it kind of through lottery of the albums, because if they don't, you start charging like $2,000 or something to meet, I read from Red Velvet or something. It's like, then it becomes kind of a crazy, like, well, only really wealthy people can go to fan meetings,
Yeah. I mean, well, you see this, I mean, you don't see it as much now because of COVID, but with artists going on tour, you'd have the high touch option, right? The ticket price, so you have like the VIP ticket but with the high touch, and that would obviously be the most expensive ticket you can buy, but the face value of it, say if the normal value of the ticket is like $50, the high touch might be $250 or something like that. So it's high, but it's not like crazy for a VIP concert ticket, right? And then you get to go, and then you can see them, and initially you could like shake hands or high five or whatever and say hi and then go on. You don't get to sit and talk to them like at a fan sign, but you can at least have that moment with them.
I didn't even try to those look. I didn't even try to look for Twice if they had like VIP tickets, because even some of just like the front row ones were like $3,000 and stuff. So it's like, I imagine like a meet and greet ticket for Twice. Some crazy person out there is like, I want $10,000.
They are doing high touch at some of the concerts, I think, but not all of them.
I mean, right now it's probably not very safe to do like the fan meeting things, traveling on concerts and stuff. I mean,
yeah. So one of my friends who did it with Very Very before they had to cancel the tour, she did the high touch, but it was like had to wear mask and gloves and all that. It's not the end of the world, but
gloves because they shake hands or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I have to wear gloves at some of these fan signs, and we don't have any. We're not allowed any physical contact.
So it's just like
it's just so because you hand an album to the staff.
Oh yeah. That makes sense, along. I guess, because if you grab the album or whatever.
But the dumb thing is that you turn up to the venue with your normal hands, and then you get given the album with your normal hands, and then you put the gloves on, and then you hand it. It's just like.
Yeah, some things are like so precautionary where it's illogical or something.
So what do you? How would it have happened at this time? Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there's normal amounts of like what your fandom and your support of like doing that, buying a bunch of copies to show support or something. And then there's just the extremes, like there is with anything. There's definitely the extremes where it's just like, why are you buying like 1,000 of the same thing? Like where it's just I understand if you want to make your group look bigger or something by doing that, but don't you want them to be as big as just that they are, like the actual fandom size or whatever? Like then you're just pretending or something that it's that large of a fandom or something if you're buying like an extra 1,000 copies or something.
Yeah,
especially like if as an artist, I wouldn't want people doing that, like buying like a bunch of extra copies. I want to know how many people are actually listening and actually fans versus just like one person buying.
Although, having said that, I'm sure if like the next time you release a physical album, if someone snaps up 10,000 copies, you're not going to be mad at it.
No, I'm not going to be mad about it. I would just be, I wouldn't be mad about it. Obviously, it's like sick. We sold like 10,000, but then when there is something as someone who makes music, if you find out that 10,000 wasn't bought by 10,000 people, but by one person, that's a little disappointing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, especially if you're like, oh, this means weird. We have this kind of fan base, and then you like want to go to do a big concert, but then not that many people turn up because
The
it's
one guy
actually
who bought your 10,000 copies.
the whole guy's going nuts.
Yeah,
But yeah, it would be because I often thought about that, like with Signature telling them there's like, oh yeah, there's like been 150, 200 or whatever albums that's come through me and my one friend who sorted this all for me, like,
yeah,
and like they're really touched by it, but at the same time I'm wondering if they're thinking like, oh, this means that actually out of these 5,000 that we've sold, that's not 5,000 fans.
Well, yeah, I'm sure the
it's less
actual
than that.
sales helps support them of the albums, but then
Yeah,
it's also like you want to feel like your fandom is growing bigger and you want to feel like more people are getting interested versus like just maintaining the same level of fandom, which is by them buying more copies. You want, when those more copies are being sold, you want it to be because more people were interested in buying copies.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of, I could see the how the artist feels about it, and then how, but then like you said, if 10,000 copies are sold, I'm not like, you know, it's like, oh, sick, you know, like regardless. Yeah. But there's just, yeah, the little voice in your head that's like, but 10,000 people didn't buy it or whatever. Like,
yeah, I think it will be a part of the future of the K-pop physical industry, that you can buy an album digitally and get the photo cards shipped to you. So you're just buying for a physical shipment of the things that you want to keep. I'm surprised that more companies don't also just have like photo card sales, because I have to imagine it. If a company is like, could use a bit of extra cash, let's just take a couple nice pictures of our idols and print them, because the cost of actually printing a photo card is next to nothing.
Yeah.
And then just put them up for sale, and people would snap them up. You know, it's like, and that would be a really good way of just earning a bit of money real quick. But well,
I think it's okay when they do that stuff and you can buy the specific album knowing you're getting the one you want. I think it's a little more interesting when you have to buy a bunch of times hoping you get the one you want. You know what I mean? Then that's a little, that to me doesn't feel as good versus them being like, here, you buy this one, you get the member that you want or something, whereas it's like you buy this one and it's a lottery or whatever of who you get. But it's like, BTS specifically, like the members themselves are like, everything I've ever seen, they're like really cool. I imagine they don't feel great about like certain things like spam buying, and or, you know, as artists themselves, I'm sure they don't like feel great about some of that side of things.
Yeah,
especially like the thing with YouTube videos where it's like restream it over and over and over and over and over again to up the view count. You know, it's like it's just a little weird sometimes.
So like the lottery thing. So like if you were wanting to get one of these, the Chloe photo cards I showed you, this I got 2 of these in those 14 albums, right? I got this G1 photo card 5 times in comparison.
I see.
So it's like the difference in just, because it's like scarcity, right? But like value is affected by that. So, and how much in demand a member might be or whatever, it's going to impact how easy the rest of them are to find homes.
On the production side of things, I imagine it's more difficult for a smaller company to give you like not the lottery style, you know, versus because I'm sure a bigger label easily can be like, all right, let's make a bunch of each member and make it that you can buy that specific one. If it's a smaller company, they're just like, we're just going to make a set amount. And then it's like lottery style, because we don't want just, if it's a smaller group and everyone's just like big fan of one member or something, then that it's going to feel bad for the group if like one member just sells out and then the rest of them don't get sold.
It almost always, it's only when you have the special member versions that you can specifically buy for that member. It's only like some like special cards or pre-order cards where you can maybe pick either that or you don't pick and you actually get all of them. which is a nice thing to have. So like I remember for Lovely's, what ended up being Lovely's last album, the pre-order for that was a photocard of each member. So you got 8 with it, which was
That's
meant
dope.
that with the 2 random ones in the album itself, you ended up with 10 photocards for it, which is nice, right?
That's
It's
a
a
really
good
cool way of doing
chunk
it,
of
yeah,
it.
because then you feel like you get a lot more for your money that way.
Yeah, that was very generous. That's very rare to see that kind of thing.
I
But
take
like,
back what I said
yeah,
earlier about like the lottery style does make sense when I just brought up the like because you could just spam by your like the most popular member and the rest of them don't sell or
yeah,
something. The lottery style actually does make a lot of sense when I think about that. Because yeah, if Itzy came out with something and I just bought like all the Cher Young ones, I would feel bad for like all the other members if say only one member's like was just completely
mm,
selling out or something, you know. So the lottery style actually is logical when I think of it that way.
yeah. And yeah, like I say, you see members getting priced differently when they're being sold on in the community.
Hmm.
Um, like I saw some nature photo cards for sale that someone posted earlier today, where Haru's one was like $16, and then Sunshine and Uche had one for like $9, and it's like,
It's like a stock market to the value
yeah,
of photo cards
it's
or
like wait,
something.
that it's like Haru Nation has inflated the cost of her cards more because she's more in demand or
I would
whatever.
have thought like say bomb cards would be like the hot commodity of
The several cards, especially from the girls era, the blonde ones, are
the
hot
head
property.
shooks. This is all. I mean, I've been on the Instagram profiles or whatever, and then you go to say bombs, and you're just like, "Whoa!" Like, so I can imagine in the photo card market it being the same way.
Yep, pretty much.
Well, I don't know. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on that subject?
Um, no, I think we've pretty much covered everything, right? I guess the conclusion from it is, well, hopefully the industry will continue to adapt to how the mass buying thing is why people are doing it, and possibly open up the possibility for people to get tickets to fan signs and stuff without having to actually have albums that they will then just throw away. Um, and hopefully there will come a time where fandoms don't try and use sales as a means to fight each other, but
Yeah.
that day might take longer to come.
It's good. It's good. The more the direction we move into having a reliable metric of the actual sales and size of fandom is always a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So hopefully it becomes really reliable source of information in the future. You know, the more kind of way they make it like, okay, one person. It'll be better if we really have an understanding of it versus someone buying 10,000 copies and you not knowing that that's not 10,000 people buying it.
yeah.
All right, well, that has been it for K-Pop Podcast episode 12. Of course, if any of you have any disagreements about any of the topics we discussed, feel free to kindly discuss them in the comments section. Do not forget that I have the power to just delete your comment if you come in here with extreme hate, okay? All right, that is it. I am Honan.
I'm Oliver.